This is going to be part 2 of our video on processing a piece of lumber. So we've already used the machine or the machines to get it flat, smooth, and square on all 6 sides. Now we're going to go in there and actually finish it. So first thing I want to do is get the faces done. So I'm looking at that, read the grain. If you can't tell by looking, you can often tell by running your hand. You'll feel resistance in one direction, less resistance in another. So I think I want to plane in that direction. So I'll set this on my bench. Put it between 2 bench dogs so it doesn't slide around on me. Make sure that seats properly. Now, a little bit of wax in the sole of the plane that reduces the friction so that my effort is spent pushing the blade through the wood instead of pushing the plane over the wood. Now, I've got the blade fully retracted. What I was doing there is sighting down the sole to get that blade parallel to the sole. I don't want it taking off more material on one side than the other. But I'll start planing. And then as I advance the blade, I want to see that the shaving comes up uniform or width across, or the same amount across the width of the plane. Now that I got it cutting, my first pass is going to have a part of the blade hanging over the edge. And then the next pass will go down the middle, which means it overlaps the first. And the last pass will have a part of the blade hanging over that edge so that we make sure we get the entire surface. And I'll do it again. What I'm looking to do is, without seriously changing the dimension, I want to get rid of any evidence from the thickness planer and those rotary marks that are left by the cutter head. I also want to eliminate any plane tracks, which are a result of the corner of the blade digging in. Okay, that feels good. Now we'll flip it over and do the other side. Again, a little bit of wax just to reduce the friction. And the question is frequently asked, does it interfere with the finish later? I've never had a problem, but then I wouldn't wax it just before my final pass either. Now you can see some defects from the thickness planer. There's snipe marks right here. And this hand plane allows you to get rid of those uniformly. By that I mean if you were to sand, the sanding is just going to erode this part, which is going to be a little bit lower because of the snipe, whereas the hand plane is going to help you level out the entire surface, so it'll be uniform thickness. At least that's the plan. Now I'm going to pull the blade in a little bit, take more of a finishing cut, pull it in a little bit more. Okay, no plane tracks, don't feel any, the surface looks nice and clean. Now I'll do the edges. You can do them like this, or you can put it in your vise. Either way, if it's a little too tall, you might want to put it in your vise. I need a square to make sure that I keep that edge square. Now, when I plane an edge, I prefer, because the blade doesn't go all the way to either side, and I want to keep the board centered in the blade, I put my thumb right here, use my finger on the underside, and run that along the side face of the board. And what that helps to do is to act like a fence and keep that board centered in my blade. Now I'll keep going until I get a full width shaving. You can hear that I'm still skipping in the middle. That may be a result of the jointer or the table saw. That feels okay. I was watching, and that's a full width shaving. Now we just want to check and make sure that I kept it square. Now I took a little too much off of this side, so I've got to correct that. It's not bad. So what I'll do is use my finger underneath to keep this side of my plane flush with this side of the board. That means this area right here where there is no blade will prevent me from reducing this low side. Instead, it's just going to take the high side of the board, which is this edge closest to me. I'm thinking maybe 2 passes. And then 1 or 2 final ones to get it back to being straight from side to side. Now check that. That's good. Okay, now we'll do the other edge. Now you can do the other edge a little different way if you want. I need to prop this up. In order to keep it cutting or in the blade on the plane. Remember, the blade doesn't go all the way to the bottom, so I can't lay this flat. But I can use my bench like a big shooting board. And when I'm doing this, I'm pushing with my left hand opposite of where the blade is. The setup of the bench top and the board sitting here keeps it square in this direction. And I'll just go until I get a nice smooth surface. That sounded like a full width shaving the whole way. And we'll check it just to verify. And that's good and square. Now our last thing is to clean up the two ends. So for that, I'm going to use my shooting board. And if you're unfamiliar with a shooting board, you want to find out about them and you want to make one, because it is probably the one shop-built apparatus that will do more to increase the efficiency in your shop as well as the accuracy. Set it up once, build it properly, and then every time you use it, that board will end up coming off nice and square. First thing I have to do is cut a little chamfer on this far side. If I don't do that, when I cross the end of this board, I risk having these fibers break off. Now I'm going to turn it like that. And you can see that I've created a bit of a gap right here. And I will simply plane. I'm going to pull that blade in a little bit. I'll plane until that little chamfer disappears. Need a little more than that. If you go past it, then you nullify what it was doing. Okay, now I'm right here, but you also notice that that board is, that cut is on a little bit of a slant, which tells me that the blade is probably not sitting. Yeah, you know what? Maybe just a little bit. Seems to be just projecting a little bit more on the top side. So what I'm going to do is pull the lateral adjustment lever up, and that'll pull the top side in and push the bottom side out, and that should even things up. Okay, my chamfer's gone, and that's finished. So I got a nice clean surface. Do the same thing on the opposite side. First thing we have to do, pull the board away. Excuse me, cut a little chamfer. Flip that over. I'm going to pull that blade in a little bit. No, I went a little bit too far. See that? And I got those tear out on that back side. I should have had a little heavier chamfer. I'm right here. I can take one more pass. Okay, now I got to get rid of what I tore up right there, which is going to make my board a little narrower than I would have wanted if I was actually working on a furniture component. But in this case, I'm just processing it to get a nice finished board. Make sure that's sitting flat. Sometimes you need to tap those bench dogs down. They'll pull that board down tight. Oh, something else I forgot. I had adjusted that for the plane, or for the shooting board. I didn't bring it back. So it's back to being parallel to the sole by eye anyway. Make sure there's no debris underneath. Okay, nice sharp corner, nice sharp corner, nice sharp corner, nice sharp corner. So there we've got a piece of lumber that has 6 finished surfaces, and it's ready to be used as a component in a piece of furniture. Or you can just sit there and look at it. That's what I think is the most efficient way and the most pleasurable way. You don't deal with sawdust. You don't deal with swirly marks. You're going to put a finish on that, and it's the nicest way to finish any piece of lumber. Hope that helps.